Okay, welcome back. Today's lesson is linear functions. To be a little more specific, today you will be learning how to graph and how to write the equations of linear functions. Okay, now for this lesson, you will need a piece of graph paper to take notes. Okay, anytime we are graphing in this class, your notes need to be on graph paper so that your notes are accurate and that you can go back and read your notes clearly. Okay. Not all of us are the best artists, okay? So I recommend that you take notes on graph paper. Before we start this lesson, I want you to take out your definition sheet, and I want you to add 3 things to that definition sheet. Let's go ahead and write definitions, okay? First, we're going to look at the symbol, okay? It looks like a triangle. This represents this is a letter in the Greek alphabet. Okay, so in math, we run out of letters in our own alphabet, and so we borrow letters from the Greek alphabet. Okay, this looks like a triangle, but this actually represents the 4th letter in the Greek alphabet, or what would be equivalent to capital D in the Greek alphabet. The name of this symbol, okay, so we're going to write the name of this symbol is delta. Okay, so we call this symbol delta, that's its name, okay, and it is capital D in the Greek alphabet. Now, this symbol has a specific meaning, okay? So what does this symbol mean? Or what does delta mean? Okay, it has a specific meaning in math, okay? Delta means change in position. Okay? Quickly, what is change in position? We've got to move very quickly here. 7 to 5. How far, or what is the change in position from 7 to 5? What is the change in position from 7 to 5? Hopefully you say 2. Now, how did you figure that out? You did what? 7 minus 5. You subtracted. 7 minus 5 gives 2. You could have also flipped it around, or you could have done 5 minus 7, which gives negative 2. You could put absolute value here, and you get the absolute value 2 is 2, absolute value negative 2 is... Okay, so to find change in position from 7 to 5, what do? You subtract. So another way of thinking about delta, okay, instead of thinking change in position, if I ask you on a quiz, what does this symbol mean, you can either write change in position or you can write subtract. Okay, so what does delta mean? Literally, it means to subtract. Now, third definition and final is definition of slope. Okay, what is the definition of slope? Slope is represented by variable m, okay, and slope is defined as delta y over delta x. Now, we read this as the change in position of y divided by the change in position of x, or a short way of saying it is the change in y over the change in x. Or you can think of this as subtract y, divide by subtract x. Now, all of this will be talked about more in the next lesson. For right now, I just want you to add this to your definition sheet and be familiar with these symbols and this definition, or this symbol delta and this definition. Now, today's lesson, okay? Graphing and writing the equations of linear functions requires you to know two things, okay? And if you can find these 2 things, the problem becomes easy, okay? These 2 things are point. A point is a location, x comma y, and slope. Students get hung up on quizzes, on tests, and they always have, I didn't know what to do. Okay, so what do you do? When you don't know what to do, what do? You find these 2 pieces of information. So every problem, when dealing with linear functions, when dealing with lines, every problem comes down to finding 2 pieces of information. You have to find a point and a slope. If you can find these 2 pieces of information, the problem becomes very easy. Okay, so you may know, just to kind of clue you in here, okay, you may remember linear functions from previous classes. Here, maybe you remember y equals mx plus b. This may look familiar to you. This is the equation of a linear function. Okay, now within this equation is contained 2 pieces of information. And if you had to guess what 2 pieces of information are inside of this equation, and if you said point and slope, you're correct. Within this equation is contained 2 pieces of information, namely a point and a slope. And if you can find these 2 pieces of information, the problem becomes very easy. So, in order to graph a line, in order to write the equation of a line, you need to find a point and a slope. Okay, now, So we're going to be looking at y equals mx plus b today. All right, but before we go here, let's talk about the problem given on the board. There are technically 5 steps to your homework tonight. I don't know if we're going to have time. We may only look at 4. But the first step on your homework tonight is to graph. Okay. Now, we are not working out of the book. I'm giving you guys a handout sheet for this lesson, so your homework will come off of a handout sheet. Your first step is to graph the line. Okay, what line? This line. The information is given here. It says that a line passes through the point 2, -3 and has a slope of -1/4. Now, I'm assuming that you guys already are familiar with how to graph points. Okay, so there are 2 pieces of information contained within this information. Okay, and it's very straightforward. What 2 pieces of information do we need to find? We need to find a point and a slope. Now, within this information, can you find that? Yes. Okay, here is your point. The line passes through, and here is the slope. So we're going to write that over here. Our point is 2, -3. And our slope, represented by variable m, is -1/4. Now, I want you to notice, in your point, what is the x value? The x value is 2, and what is your y value? Your y value is -3. Also, on your graph, this is your x-axis, and this is your y-axis. Now, 2 will represent how far you go on the x-axis, and 3 will represent, or -3 will represent how far you go on your y-axis. Okay? Now, also for today's lesson, we're not going to look at slope based on the definition, but we're going to look at slope today as rise over run. Now, rise meaning how far you go up and down. Run means how far you go left and right. So rise in this problem, the rise is -1 and the run is +4. Okay, we're going to talk about this in just a moment. Now, before we do this, okay, what I need you to know is direction. So we're going to look at the x and the y-axis, starting with the y-axis, the vertical. So the vertical axis, this is vertical. Vertical is up and down, horizontal is left and right, vertical. Looking at the vertical. Up is positive, down is negative. Up is positive, down is negative. Horizontally, right is positive, left is negative. Again, right is positive, left is negative. So, to graph our point, okay, maybe write this first. Point is our starting position. Okay? And slope is direction. Okay, so we always have to know our starting position first. So let's graph our point. Okay? Notice that your x value is +2 from the origin. That means go 2 units right. And your y value is -3. That means go 3 units down. So we're going to go 2 units right, 3 units down. Mark this location as 2, -3. Now our slope. Our slope gives us our direction. Okay? Rise is how far we go up and down. So let's start with this. Our rise is -1. Okay, this is how far we go either up or down. Now, since we said up is positive and down is negative, -1 will mean what? Go down 1. Now, our run is how far we go left and right. Now, since I said right is positive and left is negative, +4 means go what? Right 4 units. So our direction is to, or if you give me directions, you know, go 5 blocks. Go 5 blocks east and 2 blocks west, or 5 blocks east, 2 blocks south, etc. Okay, you're giving someone driving directions. It's the same thing with slope. Give me directions. So if you give me directions here, you say go 1 unit down and 4 units right. Okay, so from this point, we're going to use our direction. We're going to go 1 unit down, and we're going to go 4 units to the right. And we're going to put a point. Okay? Now, going down 1, right 4 is the same as going up 1, left 4. If you say why, I will answer this question later. So going down 1, left 4 is the same as going up 1. Going down 1, right 4 is the same as going up 1, left 4. Now, we can graph our line. The line passes through these points. Now, I want you to notice, is the slope positive or is the slope negative? I'm going to erase it and rewrite it. Hopefully you say that the slope is negative. Now, before we go any further, let's look at slope. Okay? We read left to right. So if we look at a line going uphill, left to right, we say that slope is positive. Okay? Uphill, left to right, slope is positive. Okay, downhill, left to right, slope is negative. Okay, let's maybe help you understand this here. If my arm represents a line, okay, this has what? If this arm is a line, okay, does this line have a positive slope or negative slope? Hopefully you say that this is what? This is uphill left to right, so this has positive slope. And if my arm represents a slope, you say downhill left to right, this has what? A negative slope. Now, we say positive slope, we say what? Negative slope, positive, negative, positive, negative. Okay, what's between the positives and the negatives? What's between the positives and the zero? Okay, zero is between your positives and your negatives. So we say that a line that has a horizontal line has a slope equal to 0. Okay, so a horizontal line has a slope equal to 0. All right, so positive slope, uphill, left, right, negative slope, downhill, left, right, and a horizontal line has a slope of 0. Now, is our line that we just graphed going uphill or downhill? Okay, uphill or downhill, left, right? Well, hopefully you say downhill. Okay, this has what type of slope? This is negative. Look at your slope here. Is this slope consistent with what we see on the graph? Yes. Okay, negative slope, and it appears to be negative. Now, we have graphed our line. This is the line. Okay, now, we have to write the equation of the line. Now, there are 3 forms of the equation of the line. You guys are used to seeing y equals mx plus b, but this is only one form. Okay, I'm going to write all 3 forms on the board. Let's condense. I'm going to erase some of this. Okay, so we have space. First is point slope form. Point slope form says y minus k equals m times quantity x minus h. Oh no. Okay, this is looking complicated. Look, point is hk and the slope is m. This may be hard to look at, but it's actually very, very simple once I show you what to do, so don't worry yet. The point is hk, slope is m. Okay, next form is here. Let's do this. Okay, slope intercept form. Okay. Slope intercept form says y equals mx plus b. Again, what 2 pieces of information do we need to find to graph a line? We need a point and what? A slope. Notice, what did I just write here? Within this equation is contained a point and a slope. Also, within this equation is contained a point. Okay, your point is 0b. Bear with me. And your slope is m. Okay. Now, lastly, we have standard form. Okay, standard form says that ax plus by equals c. Notice, for the point slope form, okay, I'm going to put a check mark. The check mark indicates the equation. Okay, so the equation has what pieces of information within it? It has a point and a slope within it. Okay, y equals mx plus b is your equation. Within this equation are 2 pieces of information, a point and a slope. Also, your standard form, ax plus by equals c, this is your equation. And notice, I have not given you a point and a slope, and that is for a specific reason. Okay, so I just want you to understand, I've given you how to find a point and slope in these 2 equations, but not this one. Okay, now, so what has a check mark next to it are the equations that you need to find. Now, we're going to start with writing the point slope form of the equation of this line. Now, before we do this, let's look at point slope form here. Some things to notice. Okay, your point is hk. Now, looking here, h is what? H is your x value and k is your y value. Looking at the point that we have for this problem, h is what? H is 2 and k is -3. Now, looking at how hk relates to the equation, notice that h is your x value and h is next to x. Okay? K is your y value and k is next to y. Okay, so we have k here, k is next to y. Also notice, here we have positive h, in the equation we have negative h. Here we have positive k, in the equation we have negative k. Or we read this, if the point value is h, in the equation you put the opposite of h. In the point, if the value is k, in the equation we put the opposite of k. Now, how do we write the point-slope form? We're going to start with y. So to write the point-slope form of this line, we start by writing y. And notice, what goes next to y? What goes next to y? K goes next to y. Now, what is the k value in our point? The k value in our point is -3. And also, notice if we have k, in the equation goes the opposite of k. So since our k value is -3, in the equation we're going to put the opposite of -3, which is +3. Now, this is equal to, notice the equality goes next. What comes next? The slope. The slope is m, okay? M represents the slope. In this case, we have a slope. Slope is what? -1/4 goes next. And then we open a set of parentheses and put x. Now, next to x goes the h value. Okay, notice the h value in our problem is 2. Okay, or maybe be more specific. The h value is 2. In the equation goes the opposite of h. Since our h value is 2, in the equation we're going to put the opposite of 2, which is -2. And you have simply written the equation, or the point-slope equation of this line, and that's all there is to it. Okay, maybe it looks complicated the first time. Let's go through this again. So what did we do? Look, what did we do? Okay, here, I'm going to erase it, do it again. It's actually pretty simple. We put the y value, okay, and then we put the opposite of the y value of the point. Since the y value of the point is -3, we put the opposite of that, which is what? +3. Equals, now what goes next? The slope goes next. The slope is -1/4. We open a set of parentheses, put x. Next to x goes the opposite of the x value. Since the x value is 2, the opposite of 2 is what? -2, and you're done. Okay, so simply put the slope here, put your x value here, put your y value here. It's pretty much that easy. All right, so this is the equation of this line. Okay, we'll talk more about, again, what that means later. Point-slope form. Okay, now what do we have to have? We have to have slope-intercept form. Okay. Now you will notice slope-intercept form says y equals mx plus b. What is different? What is the difference between the point-slope form and the slope-intercept form? Notice. Here is your equality that divides the equation into 2 parts. Here is your equality that divides the equation into 2 parts. Notice, what is on the left side of this equation? Notice that you have y and you have k. Okay? In the slope-intercept form, notice y is by itself on the left. So to get point-slope form to slope-intercept form, we simply have to get y by itself. Now, based on what we've done with equations in the previous lessons, to get y by itself, what do we have to do? Well, we have to move the 3 to the other side. It will become -3. Before we do this, though, we're first going to use distributive properties. So we're going to distribute the -1, or distribute the multiplication across the addition, multiply the -1/4 by x, and the -1/4 by -2. So let's see. Let's write y plus 3 equals, and you have to do -1/4 times x. Fractions. Okay, so let's talk about this. -1/4 multiplied by x. Okay, we can read this as -1/4 multiplied by x over 1. Okay, -1 times x is what? -x, and 4 times 1 is 4. So we end up with -x over 4. Okay, so -1/4 times x is -x over 4. And hopefully you remember when we dealt with number times fraction, okay, you can simply take x and multiply by the top. Okay, x times -1 is -x, all right, and leave the denominator alone. We don't have to write the 1, okay, so we just have -x over 4. Right? Now, we also have to do -1/4 times -2. Let's ignore the signs and just deal with 1/4 multiplied by 2. Now, you guys remember to deal with a fraction times a number, we take the number and divide by the bottom, but notice 2 divided by 4 does not work. Okay, so we're just going to simply multiply instead. 2 times 1 is 2, and leave the denominator alone, 2/4. Now we can reduce 2/4, divide them each by 2, we get 1/2. Okay, so -1/4 times 2 is 1/2. Negative times negative is positive. Okay. Now that you have used distributive property, you now have to move your 3 to the other side. +3 will become what? -3. Cross it out. Okay, so now we have to combine 1/2 and 3. Okay, so we're going to have 1/2 subtract 3. This is different. Notice we have addition. Now, like I said in previous videos, guys, when you add, something must match, and what matches doesn't change. Okay, do not forget this. When you add, something must match, and what matches doesn't change. When we add fractions, something must match, and what matches doesn't change. What needs to match? The denominator needs to match. So we need to get 2 to match the denominator here of 1. The trick is this. multiply your 1, or your denominator over here, by 2. If you do this to the bottom, you also have to do this to the top. So we're going to multiply by 2 over 2. We're going to have 1/2 subtract. Here we have 3 times 2 is 6. 1 times 2 is 2, so we have 6/2. All right, now, 1/2 subtract 6/2. What matches doesn't change. Okay, so your denominator of 2 will not change. And do 1 minus 6, which gives -5. So we end up with 1/2 subtract 3 is -5/2. Now we're going to write our final answer. Y equals negative x over 4, and 1/2 subtract 3 is -5/2. Now, this is your slope-intercept form of the equation of this line. What happened? Okay, so let's recap. To do the point-slope form, well, to get from point-slope form to slope-intercept, what did we do? We got y by itself. We moved the 3 to the other side. Before we did that, though, we had to first distribute. Okay, so we distributed the 1/4, okay, and then we moved the 3 to the other side and combined. Okay, so we end up with y equals. Notice that y is by itself. Y is by itself on the left side of the equality, and we have y equals mx plus b. To be more specific, you're looking at y equals -1/4 x minus 5 over 2. Okay? Now, y equals -x over 4 minus 5 over 2. Lastly, we have to get to standard form. So we're going to write standard form. Running out of space. Okay, looking at standard form. Standard form says that we have to have the x term and the y term on the left of the equality. The equality is here, so we want the x term and the y term on the left. Okay, notice. Where's our y term? Y term is where? Y term is already on the left. Okay, we want to put the x term on the left. So the first thing you have to do to get to standard form is to put the x term on the left. Okay, so take the -x over 4 and move it to the left. If it's negative here, it's going to become positive. So we're going to have positive x over 4. Okay, we already have positive y on the left equals, and what's left on the right? Well, we have -5/2. Okay, now there are 2 rules for standard form. First, the a value must be positive, or the x term must be positive, okay? So we're looking here, x over 4. Is the x term positive? Yes, we're good here. Second rule for standard form is that you cannot have fractions, okay? So our x term is positive, we're good there, but what's our problem? We have fractions. How do we get rid of these fractions? Okay, we're going to multiply to get rid of the denominators, okay? So here we have a denominator of 4 and a denominator of 2. For now, I want you guys to multiply by the larger number. The larger number is what? 4. So we're going to put parentheses around our terms, and we're going to multiply by 4. So multiply by 4, multiply by 4, multiply by 4. Okay, what happens in the first term? Well, the 4's cancel, leaving you just with x. Well, I'm running out of space. X. On the next term, we do 4 times y and get what? Plus 4y. Okay? And on the last term, the 4 cancels with the 2. Okay? We divide each of these by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. We do not write the 1. 4 divided by 2 is 2. We're going to now take the 2 and multiply by the -5. 2 times -5 is -10. And you have arrived at standard form. You say, wow, I am completely lost. That is okay. This is the first problem. And I purposely made the first problem very difficult by inserting fractions in this problem. Okay, the next problem is not going to be nearly as difficult as this one. So if you at least got the basic concepts of what we have to do, first we have to what? Graph the line. Secondly, we have to write the point-slope form. Thirdly, we have to write the slope-intercept form. And fourth, we have to write standard form. And I just do not have room on the board to write step 5. So for right now, let's just work on 4 steps. All right, now, the next problem is going to be much easier. Let's look at the next problem. I'm going to erase this. And after the next problem, hopefully, this becomes understandable. Okay? Going back to 2 things we need to graph a line, write the equation of a line. What are they? Well, we need a point and we need a slope. Okay, so erasing all of this. I'm going to give you 2 more pieces of information. Okay? Different from the first. Okay, a line passes through -3, -4, and has a slope of +2. Okay? So, what 2 pieces of information do we need to find? Yes, hopefully you say point and slope. Again, point is x comma y. Okay? And our point here is what? -3, -4. And our slope is 2. Okay? So slope equals 2. And again, we're going to think of this as rise over run. Now, the first thing we're going to do is graph our point. Okay, the point is -3, -4. Since our x value is -3, we're going to go 3 units to the left. The y value is -4. You're going to go 4 units down. So 3 units left, 4 units down. Okay, and put a point. You would probably, well, you need to draw a new graph. Okay, so each problem should have a separate graph. So if you need to, pause the video, create a separate graph. Let's mark the location of this point. The location of this point is -3, -4. Now we need, again, this is reminding you, point is where we start. Okay, and slope is direction. Now, you see that slope is rise over run. Well, we just see 2. Okay, so we're going to write 2 as 2 over 1. Okay, 2 over 1. What is our rise here? Rise is what? Rise is 2 and run is 1. Okay, now remember, up is positive, down is negative, right is positive, left is negative. So if our rise, how far we go up and down, is 2, that means we're going to go what? Up 2. And our run is how far we go left and right. Our run is 1. We're going to go right 1 unit. Okay, so we're going to go up 2, right 1. From our starting location, from here, okay, from -3, -4, we're going to go up 2 and right 1. Okay, so up 2, right 1, and let's put another point. Do it again. Go up 2, right 1, and put another point. And let's now graph this line. So go ahead and draw a line through these points. Okay. Now, question, is your slope positive or negative? Okay, hopefully you say positive. And notice, does our line go uphill left to right? Okay, yes. Our line goes uphill left to right. This line is consistent with a positive slope. So always double check that. Now, first step was to graph. Second step is to find the point slope form of the equation of the line. Okay, so point slope form, we start with what? By writing y. So we're going to write y, and then we're going to put in, notice again, k is our y value, and in the equation it was the opposite of k. In this case, what is our y value? Y value is -4. -4 represents k. And next to y, we're going to put the opposite of the y value. So since our y value is -4, the opposite of -4 is +4. Equals, what goes next? Slope. Slope is 2, so we're going to put 2. Open up a parenthesis, put x. And next to x goes the opposite of the x value. Since the x value is -3, we're going to what? Put +3. And that's all there is to writing the point slope form. You guys are going to start to see what's the fastest, easiest equation to write. Point slope form. Okay, so this is the easiest one. And when you guys get to calculus, and you get to college, and you get to do upper level math, this is all they want. Okay, point slope form is all you need. Okay, all 3 of these forms mean exactly the same thing. And each one of them has special purposes, or as each form has its own purpose, or if we study different areas of math, we use a different form of the equation. But the most useful form, I would say, is probably point slope. Why? Because it's the easiest form to write. Okay, does standard have a purpose? Yes. Does slope intercept have a purpose? Yes. But what's the easiest form to write? Point slope. And when you get to calculus, this is all they're going to want you to write. So quick, so easy to write. Now, step 3 is to find the slope intercept form. Okay. Now to find slope-intercept form, we look. Slope-intercept form says what? Y equals mx plus b. Notice, what is unique about slope-intercept form? Notice that y is by itself on the left side of the equality. So to get from point slope form to slope-intercept, what do we have to do? We have to get y by itself. So what do we need to get rid of? We need to get rid of the 4. We need to move it to the other side. But before we do that, what do we have to do first? We have to distribute. So we're going to distribute the multiplication across the addition, multiply 2 by x. So we get y plus 4 equals 2 times x is 2x, 2 times 3 is 6. Now, we're now going to move the 4 to the other side. 4 is going to become what? -4, cross it out, and we now have y by itself. So we have y equals 2x, and 6 minus 4 is 2. Now, you guys may remember from Algebra 1, y equals mx plus b, that m represents your slope, and that b represents your y-intercept. Okay, well, in this class, we're not going to say, what is our y-intercept? What is our y-intercept? Is the y-intercept 2? That's not very precise. Y-intercept is a point. It's a location. Okay, y-intercept is actually a point 0, 2. Okay, we'll talk about that more tomorrow. But for now, you guys remember that slope is m, y-intercept is b. Okay, so what is our slope here? Slope is what? Slope is 2. Okay, now is that consistent with the slope that we had written originally? Yes. Okay, what is our y-intercept? Well, I said y-intercept is actually technically written as a point, 0, 2. Okay, but if you say 2 for now, that's fine. 2 is where it crosses the y-axis. Notice, where does our line cross the y-axis? Notice that it crosses the y-axis at 2 units high, which is here. Okay, the location of this point is 0, 2. Notice that points have 2 parts, not just 1. Okay, so we don't just say that the y-intercept is 2, we say that the y-intercept is 0, 2. Okay, now, always double check when you get to this point and see if these two pieces of information match up with your graph and your slope. Now, step 4 is standard form, and we will be done, okay, with this video. Standard form says that ax plus by is c, or we need our x term and our y term on the left side of the equality. So to get from slope-intercept form to standard form, let me erase this and rewrite it. Y equals 2x plus 2. To get from slope-intercept to standard form, we need to put our x term where? On the left side of the equality. So 2x is going to move to the left and become what? Negative 2x. Our y term is already positive, so we have positive y equals what? 2. Now, there are 2 rules for standard form. First, the x term must be positive, and secondly, there cannot be any fractions in the equation. Okay, so do we have fractions? No, so we're good there. Yay. All right, now, but we notice that our x term is not positive, but rather negative. So we have to make the x term positive. How? By multiplying. So I want you to, again, put parentheses around your terms. And to make the x term positive, we're going to multiply all of our terms by negative 1, negative 1, negative 1. Okay, so negative 1 times negative 2x is what? Positive 2x. Negative 1 times y is negative y. Negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. And you have arrived at your standard form. On the board are written all 3 forms of the equation I've circled. Here's your point slope, here's your slope intercept, and here's your standard. All 3 of these represent exactly the same thing, okay? But our easiest form to write is point slope form, okay? Now, in the next video, we're going to go more in depth.